Hello mate, and welcome to a devlog slash, I suppose you could call this a tutorial video on how to create gradients using one of the brush tools. I know that Photoshop has a gradient tool in it that allows you to create nice smooth gradients, but what I like about using the technique I'm using here is that it gives you the kind of brush stroke look, so it looks hand painted, and that's because it is hand painted. So for certain projects this might actually be more aesthetically pleasing than just using a straight up Photoshop gradient, and it's actually dead simple. So I am using my iPad as a pen tablet here attached to my PC, so realistically you can do this without a pen tablet. It's just going to be a little bit trickier, but yeah, so what I'm going to do is essentially we're using a pen tablet, so I'm going to hide the two layers that I've created. I'm going to create a new layer just here. I'm going to select black as my color, making sure that I've got the brush tool selected, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by pressing hard at one end and then getting gradually lighter as I get closer to the end. As you can see, my pen control is not great, so if you're thinking, oh well, yeah, this is something that only practiced people can do, don't worry. Look, as you can see, my pen control is crap at the moment, and yet I'm still able to do it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold down the Alt key, and that's the left Alt, not the Alt GR key, and I'm going to sample this color here, and then I'm just going to gently paint over the area. Then I'm going to repeat the process, sample the color in between the two colors that I've painted, each time to give me a nice smooth gradient. And as you can see, if you don't put all the pressure down in the world, so you're still kind of light on pressure, we're just adding values, and every time I get a hard light line, I'm just going back over it using the same technique again, a little bit of gentle pressure just to give me that value. And alright, yeah, this is a more time consuming way of doing it, but the end results just look so much better. And you're not painting for miles down you're not adding the value that you've sampled for loads and loads of distance. You're only going a tiny amount along the line just to get that blending effect. And as you can see, you're getting where I've messed up with my pen technique, I am getting some wacky values, and then it's just a case of just tracing back up along the line. And you can almost make it look like it was on purpose in some cases. Obviously we know it's not, because I'm terrible at drawing at the moment. And you can the beauty of doing it this way is you can spend as much or as little time as you want doing it to make it smoother. Obviously the longer you spend doing this, the smoother your transitions are going to be. Like so. And just keep adding value, and this is good practice for me as well. So like I said, this is kind of a devlog slash tutorial video because I'm telling you about the technique at the same time as practicing it myself. Kind of like going back to the days when the channel first started, where I would share a technique that I'd learned with Code or Dash Studio as I'd learnt it, and we're still kind of figuring it out myself. And as you can see, we can keep going for as long as we want until we get the gradient that we want. Until we get the end result that we're after, which is, you know, kind of like that. So that gives us a nice paintbrush hand-drawn style of gradient, which is really cool. But we can also do it between two colors. So let's say I'm going to go with the two colors I had selected before, similar to it. So I've got this color, kind of a minty green, and then I'll go with a kind of an orange color there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I sample the color I'm working with, and then I'm going to paint over, and then I'm going to just make sure that I'm lightening my strokes as I approach the color that I'm going to. Then I'm reversing the process in the other direction. And again, just softening up my stroke as I get to the other end. And now I'm going to find a value. I'm going to start off perhaps with this value. Paint a little bit there. That'll give me a new value to work with there. As you can see, that gives me a really nice gradient between my two colours. And again, I think this end looks a little bit, could be improved. And then we can soften up that value a bit there. And again, it gives us that gradient, but it's got, as I say, the hand painted kind of feel to it, which I think is really aesthetically pleasing. And realistically, the only step you need to take from mastering this technique, and when I eventually master it, I'll let you know. But it's just a case then of picking colours that actually complement each other. For example, yellow and blue complement each other quite well. So for example, if I was to do a really... Yep. Pick a really nice... What's it saying? Because the target layer is ours, because I haven't created a new layer, because I'm a prat. There we go. So we create a nice blue there, and then we'll go with a nice yellow. That's more of a green. Let's just go a bit more into the yellow spectrum. There we go, that's a bit better. Okay, so we've got a nice yellow and a nice blue. So starting off with the blue again, we paint and we get lighter and lighter and lighter as we get closer to the target where we're going. And then work back in the other direction. I actually eased off my pressure way too soon then. Cool. Now I can start at this end and go for that value. Just paint that over there, gives us this value. And this value gives us this value. The trick is just being accurate with where you're sampling the colours from. I think in this is that, as you can see, there's been a couple of instances where I've sampled the colour from perhaps the wrong spot, and it's actually kind of meant working backwards. Working in the wrong direction, so. And then in the areas where I can see that there's a hard transition between two colours, just work back in that direction again. Soften it up, and there you go. We can get a nice sort of hand-painted looking transition between two colours that complement each other. They're on opposite sides of the colour wheel. The thing is, when you're doing things like this, is obviously, depending on what you're doing, if you're just doing skin tones or something like that, you can make this obviously transitions look a lot smoother, because skin tones tend to be quite close to each other, the two colours that you're blending together, whereas obviously yellow and blue, opposite ends of a colour spectrum, or other sides of the colour wheel, should we say. So they're going to, the transition between them is going to be a lot more tricky. And picking the colours that you're going to use is quite important as well, because there are certain colours that make you, that immediately convoke, is that the right word? That immediately convert or create images in your mind. So for example, if I were to choose, yep, did it again, select the right layer. If I was to choose red and blue, now immediately your brain associates those colors with kind of police sirens or whatever. So they might blend really well, and I'm sure that they will. the issue you're going to have is that the blend is going to be, it just kind of creates that police siren, the police light image in your mind, which obviously might give some people PTSD if they're they've had issues with law enforcement in the past. But again, the technique is exactly the same. Regardless of what the color I'm using, I'm just blending using the technique where you sample the color that you have next to it, add 50% to the values, go back if you want to. And there you go, we get a nice blend between the two colours. And it's not, to be honest, I don't mind that blend, but obviously, as I said, red and blue, not colours that tend to, if you're looking for something that kind of grabs the eye and drags your attention to it, then obviously this is a great selection of colour. But if you're looking for something that's just a nice smooth blend, perhaps red and blue isn't the combination to go for. Anyway, that was all I was going to talk about in this video, guys. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found that useful. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, you take damn good care of yourselves, alright? Bye-bye.